Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Rambo: Last Blood. So, this is a bit of a slog, and it's so because you look at an actor like Stallone here, and this guy's aged significantly. Um, every time I see this man in a film, I think, oh, just like you've done enough, man. You can just, that sort of vibe. So this movie is a bit different from what I can recall Rambo being about. Usually when I recall Rambo, I think of the man who is like pushed into an environment that he is not used to being in, and a bunch of bad guys go and try to hunt him down, and he's left with the bare essentials, especially his iconic bow, and then he starts hunting down the people who are hunting him. That is Rambo, essentially. That is all it ever has been. So this was definitely a much slower approach, a much different approach, and this is their, assuming based on the title, their last approach, and considering, again, the age, I don't think there could be room for another one at this point. So we once again follow Rambo as he's become some more of a family man, as he has this niece who he's looking after, and he's on this ranch doing horse stuff. And the niece is, when she visits, is talking about her father, and how she wants to know the truth, and then Rambo proceeds to tell her how the father is a bad character, and so on and so forth, and where he is, and then she proceeds to be persistent, but nope, Rambo's like, that's a bad idea, but she goes anyway. And she ends up going to Mexico, finding what her friend, quote unquote, getting taken to a bar after she meets with her dad and finding out the truth that her dad is everything Rambo suggested that he was. So she goes back to her friend, they go to a party, we see that the drugs are implemented, she is then drugged, and then taken to a place where we see our bad guys of the movie. So we kind of follow Rambo as he eventually learns from his caretaker, some woman named Mary, I don't know what their relationship is, somehow discover that the daughter was missing. I don't know. Nonetheless, he goes to the location, straight to them, the bad guys, gets the crap beat out of him, and this woman, this writer, journalist, kind of tails him. So he gets beaten down and marked, and then we see this montage of time pass of like his recovery, and then the daughter's getting the drugs, and then getting that sexually assaulted, to the extent of just seeing the cuts and the bad situation. So we kind of wait around a bit, keeping in mind that this is like, we're cutting deep into like 30 minutes into the movie, and Rambo finally makes his way over there, and then after his little like training montage or healing montage, is like talking to the lady about this journalist about like how she lost someone, how stuff, and he eventually just gets her location somehow. I forget exactly how he does it, but nonetheless, he gets her pretty quickly, um, going through, and then picks her up, and then starts to drive her home. Uh, and then as it's a long road back, they can't quite make it. The daughter passes away, and Rambo feels the vengeance once again boil within him. So we see a long montage of him prepping up his little barn with various traps after telling that Mary lady to like leave or whatever. So Rambo heads back to the location of some of the bad guys, and then starts to take some of them out with a stealthy vengeance, and then leaves a very noticeable trail to where he went. The bad guys proceed to head over to his place, and they all start to feel the wrath of Rambo's various traps. And at this point, at the near end of the movie, is when the movie becomes Rambo, because essentially Rambo is about this hunted man becoming a hunter once again, I suppose. Again, from what I can recall of Rambo. So, you spend like 90% of the movie to get to this point, and then you spend like the last, I want to say 20, maybe 30 minutes if we're lucky. I want to say less. I want to say 20. With the Rambo stuff finally taking its peak. With all the men getting killed off in various different ways through the various different traps, and him leaving the main bad guy for last. So, he pulls out his iconic bow, once all the other henchmen have been killed, and proceeds to shoot said main bad guy and then rip out his heart. And then that is where he presides in his little rocking chair as he just monologues about how as long as he's still here, he will fight the good fight to keep that memory alive. And that was Rambo Last Blood. So, this is a tricky one, because I kind of have the feeling that they wanted to really hold back on the amount of Rambo stuff, because I had that feeling just from looking that Stallone probably couldn't do as much as he used to be able to do, and when Rambo first was starting to be made. All the other movies associated or outside of Rambo, like Rocky, for example. He is not in that peak form anymore. He's a lot slower. And that is a character he's also playing throughout like 90% of the movie, is this much slower character who is just dealing with family strife. And he's tired, and he's old. Old man Rambo. And that's exactly what this movie is. And, I saw the tweet from, I think it was the director of one of the earlier Rambos about being disappointed or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm torn on this. Under one hand, yeah, it's not the slaughtered house of Rambo that, people have seen previously. Obviously, that's reserved for like the last 20 minutes or so. And again, we are seeing a much older Rambo, and that kind of just comes with the territory of, that is, we are also following Stallone once again as Rambo, and he's an aged man, so Um, it is a little bit interesting. I want to say that he's trying to calm things down, be a little bit more slow. I do feel like, as a consequence, though, that if you're going to, sort of shift where the movie is going, I don't think the shift was heavy enough, if that makes any sense. I think that the material that they left with the daughter wasn't quite enough to build up to that emotional moment. Um, and again, I think that is a part of the pacing issue. Because some of the stuff we see with the daughter, it feels kind of oddly rushed in a weird way, where we see her sort of kind of move from location to location, and she's going like from a party to meet her dad to like this other location, and then we kind of see her get abused or whatever, and then that's kind of it. So when it all amounts, like, and again, it's a slow movie, but you don't really get a lot of what their relationship is, other than he's like a father figure to her. That's about what I can gauge. And then she was looking into college for something or other. That's really about it. So I think there was... I could see where this movie was going, and I can see why they would want to cool down on the whole Rambo bit, and I do think that does pay some consequence, as the movie does drag a little bit for the majority of the movie, and it's, again, very bizarrely paced. Hell, that journalist woman, her role in this movie is like, oh, I'm gonna help you this one time, and then, Rambo claims to want her help again later on, and then, like, he does his, like, setup, but you never see her in the movie again. It's that kind of stuff, she just poofs from the movie all of a sudden. Things like that happen, so... I'm gonna give this movie a 5 out of 10. I think that's as generous as I can be with this kind of movie. I do think that the idea was there, but it was just really poorly paced. And because of that, everything else sort of suffered along with that. But again, I can kind of also again understand why they would want to go for a much slower movie in general. So I'm kind of torn. That's where I'm going to leave it. So that's my review for Rambo: The Last Blood, or just Last Blood. And if you did enjoy this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One to head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. And until next time, everyone, bye!